A title: Serving Older Victims Abused by Family Members or Caregivers. Bonnie Brandl, Director, National Clearinghouse on Abuse in Later Life, End Domestic Abuse, Wisconsin.
Eligibility is a crucial issue, particularly for domestic violence programs, to take a look at. So historically, domestic violence programs have been funded to serve victims of intimate partner violence, and that's been fabulous and needed, and we're very grateful for all the work that happens serving intimate partner violence. But what we learned in Wisconsin as we started this work, and what we have learned over the years going across the country and talking to older victims, is that the power and control dynamics that we see in intimate partner violence may look slightly different, but the core of them are still often there when the abuser is an adult child, a family member, or a caregiver. And so domestic violence programs are uniquely situated to understand trauma, to understand these power and control dynamics and entitlement, and may be the one service provider in a community that can best address some of the needs of older victims who have been abused by someone other than an intimate partner. When I've talked to moms who have been abused by their adult sons and asked them what would be helpful, they have said to me things, not these exact words, but it translates in our language to safety planning, emergency housing, a hotline, a support group, someone to talk to, someone who will help me navigate the legal system, someone who will help me understand my economic options and how I can best support myself. And so to the degree that domestic violence programs can figure out how to expand their eligibility criteria for who can receive services above and beyond intimate partner violence, I think it opens the door to meet the needs of a much broader population of older adults. For some programs, their funding streams still only focus on intimate partner violence, but I think it's possible to go to a community and say, our funding streams only allow us to serve intimate partner violence. How can we as a community figure out other funding mechanisms or streams that would allow us to be able to open our doors to more, to victims in other kinds of situations? And there may be other funding streams in the community or a collaborative effort of putting in a proposal to a private foundation that will help with these eligibility issues.
Anne Menard, CEO, National Resource Center on Domestic Violence.
Good advocacy involves us listening to every story with respect and with the goal of understanding how we can be helpful. That, by definition, calls on us to be prepared to respond to the stories that we hear. The circumstances where survivors are describing risk that may be different than what we more typically hear from survivors. So risk from an adult child, for example, of an elderly victim, or risk and abuse from a caretaker. And so I think the expanding understanding of the vulnerability of older people to a range of forms of abuse and violence at the hands of a more diverse set of individuals in their lives is one that we have to respond to, but not one that we should view outside of our role as advocate. It's not inconsistent with how we have defined what it is we are in this movement to do, which is to reduce individuals' exposure to violence and abuse within these intimate relationships and ultimately end it. We cannot end it if we're saying we're only working with a subset of domestic violence victims up to a certain age, or whose circumstances look like this but not like this. That's inconsistent, again, with a true understanding of what it is to be victim and survivor defined.
Logos appear. NCALL, www.ncall.us, Terra Nova Films, terranova.org. Funded by the U.S. Department of Justice, Office on Violence Against Women and Elder Justice Initiative, www.justice.gov/elderjustice. A disclaimer. This project was supported by grant number 2014 AXTA K050, awarded by the Office on Violence Against Women and by the Elder Justice Initiative, U.S. Department of Justice. The opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed in this program are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Department of Justice, Office on Violence Against Women, or the Elder Justice Initiative.